Hello everyone. So in our lectures, we have finished the ancient India and the medieval India, and now we will proceed with the modern India. Okay. So let's start. First of all, Indian modern history covers the period from the mid 18th century to the present day, and it is an important topic for competitive exams. Covering Indian history, particularly the struggle for independence and the post-independence era. Remember, I had told you that in Indian history, we divided history in ancient, medieval, and then modern. Right? So far we have finished ancient, medieval, and now the modern part. Got it? So, remember one thing. In the modern part, I have told you the modern history start with the death of Aurangzeb in 1707 and continue to till today. Yes. So we are not covering the topics just only from mid 18th century, but even for today, or you can say the present day. So if I say that yesterday what happened to you or whatever you did at your home or any other places is also considered in the modern history form. Got it? So start from 1707 after death of Aurangzeb and continue to till today. Got it? And why it is very important? Because it contains several topics which we should know about before going to the exam or examination center. You can say whatever you want to say, you can. First thing is that it contains the basic arrival of Europeans, contain political changes in India, contain rule of British companies or government, you can say. First one was British company, named as East India Company, and thereafter British government. Got it? Then freedom movements. Thereafter British Second War, or you can say Second World War participation. Thereafter post independence. Okay, so these are the topics which we are going to cover in the section of modern history. Okay, so just have a look over them. Arrival of Europeans, political changes in India, rule of British company and government, freedom movements, British Second World War participation, and the post-independence era, you can say. Okay, remember one thing here, the topic of arrival of Europeans. We will cover this topic in our next lecture of static history, or you can say in our next chapter, basically not lecture, next chapter of static GK. We will cover about the arrival of Europeans because it is a depth topic. It is very important from the competitive exam point of view. Okay, and so we have to cover it separately. Got it? Till then, we will only cover political changes in India, rule of British company, and all the other topics which you can see here. Got it? Now let's forward. First thing was British colonial rule in 1757 to 1947. Remember one thing. The Britishers first of all come in 1599. Name was Mildenhall. He was the first British who came to India in the 1599 and formed a company called merchant adventurers. Got it? So Mildenhall basically came to India from the land way, you can say, like it's a Europe and it's a India. So he had to cross so many countries of Middle East, Central Asia, and thereafter he was able to reach India, where he saw that many trade activities were carrying on, which could be profitable for the British continent. And he found that the trade activities were going on there in India basically could be beneficial for the British or for the British Empire. Okay, so Mildenhall was the first one who came to India from Britain. Okay. Thereafter, two others called, number one, Captain Hawkins. He was the first one who officially came to India from the or on behalf of British East India Company. So Captain Hawkins was the first one who came to India on behalf of British East India Company in the court of Jahangir, who was a Mughal ruler on that time. Okay. And Captain Hawkins basically seeking the permission to trade from the Surat. At first, Jahangir denied. Later, he permitted them. Okay. And why did he deny? We will cover this topic in the arrival of Europeans part. Okay. Till then, just remember, when he came to Jahangir, Jahangir first denied them to allow trading from Surat. Thereafter, he allowed them. Okay. And to expand their trade, later on, Thomas Roy, who was the ambassador of the British king of that time, he came to Jahangir to expand their trading partnership. Got it? So now come to the next point. Expansion of British control. British gradually extended their control over various regions through wars, alliances and treaties. Now it's a topic of discussion first. Remember one thing. Britishers arrived during the time of Jahangir. Okay. On that time, they were just seeking the permission for trade. Okay. There was no other intention from their side beside trade. Second, after what happened, like during the time of Aurangzeb, or you can say after the Aurangzeb, various kingdoms, small size kingdoms were creating, or you can say various subas or districts. Remember, subas, districts or provinces. Okay. Subas are basically provinces, not the districts. So, let me write down again in the clear form. Suba means provinces. Okay. So, after Aurangzeb, various subas and their administrator known as Subedar, or basically also called as Nawab in the modern times. Okay. They were protesting against the Mughal Empire, and the later Mughal rulers were not so capable to suppress this protest. And the result was that many of their subas and provinces established themselves as a independent state. Got it? And one of such state was Bengal. So, remember one thing. Murshid Quli Khan. Murshid Quli Khan, he was the first independent ruler of Bengal. You can say he was the first independent ruler of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan. Okay, he founded the Bengal separate state. He was also termed as first independent Nawab of Bengal. Got it? So, Murshid Quli Khan was the first independent ruler of Bengal, also known as first independent Nawab of Bengal, and he founded the first Bengal separate state from the Mughal Empire. Got it? Now what happened? His grandson, whose name was Sirajuddaulah. Okay. He permitted Britishers to trade from Bengal. He allowed them to trade from Bengal. Okay. But after some time, he noticed one thing, that Britishers were collecting more revenue and Bengal state was not getting taxation and other things. Okay, so Siraj noticed these things, and then what he did, he immediately decided to cut upon the Britishers. First thing he did, he seized their factory of Qasim Bazar. Thereafter, he imprisoned British officials. Okay, and all the trading activities of Britishers were stopped. Okay, so that was Sirajuddaullah's reaction when he noticed that Britishers were trying to malfacilitate the facts. They were trying to earn more and more, but they were not paying the state any penny of them. Okay, so he noticed that the Britishers were earning more and more, but the state was not benefiting by their trade, and they were not paying a single penny to the state. So he decided to seize the Qasim Bazar factory, also imprison British officials, and then also stop their trading activities in the Bengal state. Got it? The governor of that time, remember one thing, the British East India Company had a system of governor. We will learn about him also in the static part when we will learn about the arrival of Europeans. Okay, till then remember one thing, the Britishers had two systems, governor system, then viceroy system. It was before 1857. It was after 1857. Okay, we will learn about them one by one. First of all, remember one thing, Britishers had two systems, the governor system before 1857, viceroy system after 1857. Got it? So this event took place before 1857. So the governor was Robert Clive. on that time. Got it? So Robert Clive responded to the Nawab. Okay, and there was a battle famously known as Battle of Plassey. Battle of Plassey happened in 1757, in which Siraj-ud-Dawla lost this battle. Okay, and the new Nawab named Mir Jafar was put to throne. Okay, so basically Battle of Plassey led to the defeat of Siraj-ud-Dawla, and the Mir Jafar became a new Nawab. Okay, and there was one more thing. Treaty of Alinagar. Okay, and what was this treaty? It simply means that duty-free trade. Simply means if the British goods were crossing through the Bengals, then there was no tax or custom on them. So basically their goods were duty free, because of which they were cheap and easily available, and this discouraged the domestic Indian goods. Reason was they were expensive. Why? Because they had to pay the customs or the tax whenever they pass through the Bengal state. But because of Treaty of Alinagar, the British goods were exempted from the taxation or the custom duty payment, so they were cheap in comparison of the Indian goods. Got it? Now what happened? Mir Jafar couldn't sustain for a long. He couldn't sustain for a long and soon replaced by the new ruler named Mir Qasim. The new ruler was Mir Qasim. Okay. So Mir Qasim became a new ruler, and what he did, Mir Qasim smelled out that the Britishers had some wrong intention as well. Like the Britishers were not only trying to get an influence on trade, but also on political, social and economical graphics also. Okay, so Mir Qasim made align with Shah Alam II and Shauja-ud-Dawla. Remember one thing, Shauja-ud-Dawla, do not mix it with Siraj. It is for Siraj-ud-Dawla, Nawab of Bengal. Thereafter, Shauja-ud-Dawla, Nawab of Awadh. Got it? So do not mix them. They both were separate ones. Got it? So Mir Jafar made an alliance with Shah Alam II. Let me write down here so that you can understand clearly. First was Mir Qasim, Bengal Nawab. Thereafter, Shah Alam II. He was Mughal ruler of that time. Thereafter, Shauja-ud-Dawla, who was Awadh Nawab. So they all were making an alliance against the British East India Company. Okay, so they all launched a threat or launched a war against the British East India Company, which was famously known as the Battle of Buxar. Famously known as the Battle of Buxar. Battle of Buxar, 1764. So there were two sides basically. Qasim, Sajauddaulah, Shah Alam against the Britishers. Okay, so here you can see they were three, they were only one. And what happened? They won. Britishers won this battle. And this marked an era of the British control in India. That was the first battle which led to the establishment of British Empire in India, Battle of Buxar in 1764. And after this, famous treaty was signed, which was known as Treaty of Allahabad. Signed in 1765. Got it? After Battle of Buxar in 1764, where British defeated the three main parties: Mir Qasim, Bengal ruler, Sajauddaulah, Awadh ruler, and the Shah Alam. Okay, and what was the consequences after this war, and what was included in this famous Treaty of Allahabad 1765? The first was establish British supremacy. As the British defeated the Mughal Empire, defeated the Awadh Empire, and defeated the Bengal Empire combined all together. So established their supremacy in the India subcontinent. Second, rupees 50 lakhs fine on Mughal Emperor. The Britishers imposed a 50 lakh rupees fine on Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II for waging a war against Britishers. Third was British got control over revenue collection of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. Okay, so these three states had to submit their revenue to the British East India Company, not the ruler. Okay, and the fourth and the last one was, which was the main one also, dual government. Simply means that administration of Bengal was in hand of Nawab, revenue was in hand of East India Company. Okay, so simply means that they got a huge power because they were collecting the revenue. They had the control of the economy of Bengal, and Nawab was only maintaining the law and order. Got it? So these were the consequences. Okay, and thereafter also the British launched many wars on Marathas, on Afghans, on Sikhs. Okay, we would cover this war in our static GK part. Till then, let's have a look over major movements took place during the East India Company's administration in the India. Got it? Now, come to the next point. Was Company Rule 1757 to 1858. In 1757, one thing was happened, Battle of Plassey. After it, the Britishers deployed their own ruler, Mir Jafar. Later, replaced it with Mir Qasim. Okay, so this was the beginning and the continuation of the British East India Company. But soon later, things were getting worse and worse because the Britishers had only 2 or 3 motives behind ruling the states. First motive was exploitation of resources. Second was minimum cost of production. Third was elimination of rivals. Fourth was ensuring favorable decisions. Okay, so let's study them one by one. First was exploitation of resources. The Britishers were doing the exploitation of the resources by employing the Indian laborers in a harsh conditions, employ employing the Indian laborers in harsh condition and paying less. Okay, also they were using the Indian land and various Indian natural products to producing their goods and doing their economic activities. Second was minimum cost of production. Actually, the Britishers were doing the export of raw materials. Raw materials from India, such as indigo and cotton and semi-finished clothes. So these were some of the things which were getting exported by the Britishers to the England, and thereafter they were importing goods from Britain, which were making by using these items which were exporting by the Britishers. Okay, so to ensure the minimum cost of production, the Britishers were not paying a good amount or not even a reasonable amount to the producers of these items or the producer of these goods. Like they were forcing the Bengal weavers to produce fabrics which would be used in the cloth productions in the British factories. Thereafter they were exporting to the various global markets, also were importing to the Indian market. Okay, but they were not paying even a amount to recover their cost of production. Got it? Okay, same thing was happening with the indigo farmers and the other persons who were doing work for the Britishers. Okay, so we have complete the exploitation of resources, then ensuring minimum cost of production. Third one was the elimination of rivals. Okay, not only Britishers, Portuguese, Dutch and French. These European countries were also doing a business in India. and Britishers had a task to eliminate each of them so that they ensure a full control of British Empire over Indian resources. Okay, so in order to eliminate them, they were not allowing any of the Indian businessmen, any of the Indian producer to trade with them, and they were forcing the Indians to trade only with the Britishers with the markup price or with the prescribed price decided by the British East India Company, which I have already told you were not even sufficient to recover their cost of production. Got it? Third one was ensuring favorable decisions. To ensure the favorable decisions of the state, the Britishers were acquiring different territories by putting their own rulers, or you can say the puppet rulers, or by capturing the entire kingdom through waging wars and other criteria. Got it? Now come to the next point. British colonial rule, revolt of 1857. As I have told you, the Britishers were doing so many activities on behalf of British Crown in India, basically through the British East India Company. So many negative impacts in comparison with the positive impacts. Okay. And the Indians also reacted to it, and the one of the famous reaction was revolt of 1857. Okay. Before understanding the revolt, let me tell you one thing. The Britishers were employing the Indians in their army. Indian soldiers, basically, in their army. British Indian army. Okay. So Britishers were employing the Indian soldiers in their British East Indian army. Got it? And these Indian soldiers were facing a huge humiliation by their British officers. Like continuously abusing, doing so many work, racial discrimination, and paying less than their British counterparts. Got it? Now take an example of it. First thing was, suppose if there are two soldiers. The first one was the Indian soldier, the second one was the British soldier, and he was the officer. He was always assumed that he would always assume that the British soldier is superior than the Indian soldier. Second, suppose if the British soldiers receive 500 rupees per month as a salary, the Indian soldier will receive only 100 rupees as a salary. So they were racially discriminated. Also, they were paying less in comparison of their British counterparts. Okay. So this is all about the military point of view. Now come to the real factors behind the revolt of 1857. There were four factors basically. First was military. Second was socio-economic. Third was religious. Fourth was political. Got it? So these were some of the main reasons. First one was the military. In military, there were two reasons. First one was, in military, there were two reasons. First was discrimination. Second was Enfield rifles. Okay. So as I have told you, there were discrimination in the army. Now let's have a look of the Enfield rifles. Okay. Basically, during the 1857, the British introduced the Enfield rifles. Okay. And to use the Enfield rifles, one had to scratch the back of the bullet by using his mouth. Okay. And it was rumored that the back of the bullet contain fleshes of cows and pigs, okay, which were against the religion of Hindus and Muslims. So the Hindus and the Muslim soldier denied to use that gun, okay, and they started revolting against the Britishers. Got it? Second was socio-economic reasons. As I have told you, the Britishers were exploiting the Indian resources. Also, they were not paying even a sufficient amount to recover the cost of production. Got it? Third one was the religious. Britishers banned Sati practice. Sati practice was basically a, you can say, religious practice of the Hinduism, which means that if a husband of a woman died, the woman should also burn herself on the cremation of their husband. Okay, so the Britishers banned the Sati practice, which drive anger in the Orthodox Hindu society. Third one was the political, which simply means the introduction of doctrine of lapse. Doctrine of lapse. What do you mean by doctrine of lapse? Basically, doctrine of lapse state that if a ruler did not have his next heir and adopted anyone to put on throne, then let me write down again. Adopted anyone to put on throne and he was not the natural heir of the ruler, then he could not become the king, and the kingdom was fallen to the British government or the British Empire. Got it? Now let's understand it is in a short form. Simply means that if a king did not have any of his natural heir or any of his son or daughter, and he adopted any of the son or daughter from someone else and put him on throne, that the British government would not recognize the king or the adopted one as a king, and the entire empire got into the control of the British government. Okay, so this was the basic agenda behind the doctrine of lapse. Got it? And how many states were captured by the Britishers under doctrine of lapse? So these states were, number one was Satara. Number two was Jaitapur and Sambalpur. Number three was Baghat. Number four was Udaipur. Number five was Jhansi. Then number six was Nagpur. Number seven was Tanjore. Number 8 was Arcot, or you can say Arcot. So these were the states captured by the British Empire during doctrine of lapse implementation, because they stated that the rulers of these states did not have their natural heir and they adopted someone to become a king, and the British government would not recognize him or her who was adopted by the ruler as a new king of these states. Okay, so these states, Satara, Jaitapur, Sambalpur, Bhagat, Udaipur, Jhansi, Nagpur, Tanjore and Arcot were captured by the British government. Okay, so these were the basic reasons behind the revolt of 1857. Okay, and the revolt of 1857 was get suppressed by the British government. The British government or the British army, or you can say the British East India Company, basically got succeed in suppression of this revolt of 1857. Okay, but one major change was happened here. As I have told you, there were two systems: governor system before 1857, then viceroy system after 1857. Okay, so what happened after 1857? The British Crown assumed that the British East India Company is mismanaging the administration a lot. And if the revolt of such type got into continuation, then the territory of India might be detached or might be get lost from the British Empire. So the British Crown took direct control of the Indian territory. Before 1857, British East India Company, in short, was having a administration right of the India. After 1857, British Crown took over the control or got the control of Indian territory. Got it? And they introduced a new system called the Viceroy. Viceroy was responsible to manage the state on behalf of King of Britain. Got it? So remember these things regarding revolt of 1857. Got it? Now just write down some important names associated with these battle. The first one was Mangal Pandey. Basically, Mangal Pandey was the one who denied to use that gun first. He also killed his two officers, Hughson and Bog. Okay. Later on, he was hanged on Barrackpore jail near Kolkata. Got it? And this all thing was happened in March. Thereafter, in the month of April, basically 10th April 1857. 10th April 1857, the revolt was started in Meerut and spread in all over North India. Okay, so this was all about the 1857 revolt. Now come to the next part. Socio and economic impact. British policies such as land revenue system and industrialization had significant socio-economic consequences in India. Remember one thing. Before the Britishers, the Mughals, Marathas and other regional states had their own system. But as the British Empire getting control over all over India, like in North, in East, in West, in South. Okay, so they were getting a different land revenue systems under each and every state. So to overcome this issue, they decided to launch their own revenue systems, which were three in numbers. First one was Zamindari system, also known as permanent settlement. Second was Rayotwadi system. Third was Mahalwari systems. Okay, so these were the three land revenue systems established by the British to collect the land revenue from different areas of the India. Now let's have a look on them one by one. So first one was the Zamindari system, also called permanent system, was introduced by the Lord Cornwallis. He was the governor of that time and introduced in the areas of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Okay. So write down these facts that Zamindari system, also known as a permanent system, was introduced by Lord Cornwallis and was implied in Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. Now let's have a look over what was the provisions under Zamindari system. Number one, zamindars were recognized as landowners. Okay, then simply means that zamindars were regarded as the landowners and zamindar had a full control over land. Okay. Second, land revenue was fixed, which was basically 89% of the annual revenue or the monthly revenue, you can say, decided on the agreement basis. So simply means the land revenue was fixed, that the zamindar had to submit 89% to the East India Company and the remaining 11% would be remained by the zamindars. Third system was revenue should be submitted before sunset, also known as sunset law. Now let's have a look over these provisions one by one. First thing was zamindars were declared as a landowners. Simply means that if one zamindar had 400 villages under him, then he would be declared as the owner of these 400 villagers. Okay, and then he had to collect a revenue from these 400 villages and submitted the 89% to the East India Company and could hold the 11% of his own. Okay, and he also maintained his justice system or judicial system, you can say, as well as his army system. The British government will not interfere in its internal matters of these 400 states. Got it? Second was land revenue was fixed 89%, as I have told you, and the third was revenue should be submitted before sunset, also known as sunset law. Suppose if you have to submit the revenue on, let's take example of 11th month. Okay, then you should submit the land revenue before 4 p.m. or before the sunset of 11th May. If you couldn't, then next day or soon after, your land of these 400 villages will be auctioned in the open auction system. Okay, so they had a sunset law. So this system got failed because the land revenue system demanded a high land revenue, 18%, which was not so official, which was very high on that time to pay. Second was the British government was only getting a fixed amount, whereas the zamindars' income were rising. Okay, so this system got failed. Zamindar system got failed. Thereafter, they had to introduce a new system, which was introduced as Revolt system. Revolt system implemented at Maharashtra, Madras, and Bombay presidencies area basically. Okay, and who was the governor of that time? The governor of that time was Thomas Munro. He was the governor. Okay, now let's have a look over the provisions of. Now let's have a look over provisions. First was farmers were declared as landowners. Third was revenue decide on survey. Third was only cash payment. First one, second one, third one. Okay. So besides the zamindars, the farmers were declared as the landowners. Got it? Second was revenue was not fixed but decided on the type of soil, productivity, and climatic conditions. Simply means that a farmer has to pay a revenue after assessment of the soil, productivity, and climate condition. Thereafter, it would assume that your revenue should be 1/4 on production. Or you can see an example like if the government has assesses your soil. They declare that you could produce 100 units on it, and in after 100 units you should pay at least 25 units to the government. Got it? So that's how the productivity and that's how the system was decided. Got it? Second was only cash payment. Like you have to sold out these 100 units and you have to pay the cash of 25 units only. Simply means that you could not submit your units directly to the government, but you had to submit cash payment as a revenue. Okay? So this is all about the Revolt system. This system was also get failed because the farmers were unable to pay a high cash payment to them, to Britishers. Second, the assessment was getting corrupt day by day, and these things were not benefiting for the state as well as for the farmers. Got it? Now, third point was Mahalwadi system was introduced in Western UP, Punjab, Haryana and nearby areas. Western UP means Western Uttar Pradesh basically. Got it? So Mahalwadi system was introduced on that area by who was the governor of that time? William Bentinck. In this system, it was assumed that the villages should be considered as one unit called Mahal, and after assessing the production capacity, soil type and the climatic condition of the villages, a fixed revenue should be done from a particular village or from a particular unit or from a particular mahal. Got it? And the pradhan of that village would work as a revenue collector and would submit the revenue to the British government. Okay, so this was all about the land revenue systems under British government. Okay, so the independence movement we will cover in our next lecture. Till then, thank you and have a nice day.